There's something special about the way certain people grow attached to philosophers. It's not just admiration or interest. It runs deeper, almost visceral. As if, in that thinker, they found a piece of their own identity. As if their way of seeing the world had finally found a voice, a reflection, a justification. And yet that bond, so personal, so emotional, often reveals much more about the admirer than the admired. Because choosing a philosopher is never just about ideas. It's a way of saying who we are. And sometimes, without even realizing it, we end up projecting onto the great names of philosophy our own obsessions, insecurities, fantasies, and hidden desires. Still, not everyone sticks to a single name. Some find themselves in many voices, blending ideas, building a private, personal, and often contradictory pantheon that somehow still makes sense. And then there are those who feel no need to choose a favorite, but simply let themselves be moved by every current, reading each perspective with joy, without seeking labels. This video will touch on just a few major names. Listing them all would be almost impossible. Some of them are philosophers in the strictest sense. Others are thinkers, writers, or figures who have deeply shaped contemporary philosophical reflection. Enjoy the video. Let's begin with Jean-Paul Sartre, a name that might resonate with those who feel that every choice truly matters and that freedom isn't lightness, but a responsibility one can't escape. Those who see themselves in his thought may have come to terms with the absence of a higher meaning, and yet chose to stay, to act, to respond. In Sartre, there is no comfort, only the awareness that every day we must give meaning to what we do. And those who admire him might be driven by exactly that, the urge to live up to their own freedom. Choosing Simone de Beauvoir might reveal an urgent need for emancipation, not just for women, but for anyone. A fight for authentic freedom, for the right to decide who to be without fitting into any pre-assigned role. In those who admire her, you often sense a sharp clarity, combined with a constant need to redefine oneself. It's not empty rebellion, but a deep demand for coherence between thought, body, and action. Karl Marx, on the other hand, might represent a political sensitivity that refuses to accept suffering as just a part of existence, but sees it as the result of an unjust system. Those who admire him may not have read every page of Capital, but they recognize in him a moral compass, a constant protest against inequality. This choice reveals the will to transform, to not remain passive spectators of history. Admiring Simone Weil might point to a restless and radical soul, moved by an almost mystical sense of justice and compassion. In those who are drawn to her, you can often see a spiritual search that found no peace in traditional religions, nor in pure rationalism. Will speaks to those who believe that if an idea is real, it must become part of real life. And to those who believe that pain, if accepted, can become vision. Max Stirner fascinates those who've decided that no external structure can define the individual. In his followers, you see a deep need for absolute freedom, rejecting compromise and belonging. Stirner is for those who want neither masters nor sacred ideas, for those who've made the ego their only standard and see every ideology as just another mask of control. But behind that radical individualism, there often hides a desperate hunger for authenticity. Albert Caraco attracts those who've stopped looking for hope in the mechanisms of civilization. Readers of his work might feel irritated by everything sold as progress or redemption. There's a stark allure of a lucid apocalypse in his thinking, a vision that rejects compromise. People who resonate with his ideas are unlikely to get excited by small social improvements. Instead, they want to understand what is collapsing and why. Appreciating Immanuel Kant may signal a deep desire for moral order. Admirers might be drawn to the idea that, despite everything, universal principles still exist to guide human action. It's the choice of someone who refuses to lose faith in the possibility of rational ethics, of someone who believes that even amid chaos, humanity can still find a just path. Identifying with Albert Camus often means navigating between the absurd and rebellion. It's a choice that reveals the desire to live despite everything, with dignity and profound awareness, not illusions. In Camus, one finds the pride of the human spirit that refuses to retreat even in the face of injustice. Those who admire him have likely learned that meaning isn't given, it's built, gesture by gesture. Emil Cioran might resonate with those who have turned disenchantment into a form of style. Readers recognize a weary soul, but one still capable of laughter. It's a sharp sensibility that doesn't seek salvation, but clarity. Loving Cioran might mean accepting the uselessness of everything, yet choosing to narrate it anyway, as if naming the void could make it feel less threatening. Aristotle may serve as a point of reference for those who believe everything has its place, purpose, and measure. It's a choice rooted in concreteness, balance, and trust in the rationality of the world. Admirers often show a desire to build, explain, and understand, without extremes, without rupture, but with patience. Epicurus is often misunderstood, but those who truly grasp his thought may be drawn to a form of sober, essential serenity. There's no exaggeration of pleasure in him, only the search for inner calm born of awareness. Followers may have learned to want less and to feel more. Looking to Osho might signal a search for spirituality without dogma. This preference hints at a drive toward freedom, a form of awakening that refuses to be boxed in. It can reveal a desire to break from rigidity and let life pass through, even in all its contradictions. Feeling close to Fyodor Dostoevsky may indicate a mind in constant conflict, torn between the desire to believe and the need to doubt. In those who love him, a heart is often pierced by weighty moral, religious, existential questions. Dostoevsky doesn't offer solutions. He amplifies the questions, stages the inner drama, digs it out, intensifies it, makes it unavoidable. Those who identify with him may have experienced pain, sin, or guilt, and learned to face them without turning away. And his readers perhaps have never stopped seeking redemption that is neither easy nor guaranteed. Turning to René Descartes might mean needing firm foundations and logical certainty. His voice belongs to those who feel compelled to restart from the base, to build a thought system that endures even in the face of deep doubt. Admirers may crave clarity, method, and rigor, and in that desire lies the urge not to get lost. Having Friedrich Nietzsche as a reference point might stem from a visceral rejection of the hypocrisy of dominant thought. Followers may show a desire to break apart and recreate, but also an inner loneliness hard to fill. Nietzsche isn't just the philosopher with the hammer, he's the bearer of the heaviest burden, creating meaning where none seems to exist. Martin Heidegger fascinates those who perceive existence as something mysterious and unfathomable. In his followers, one senses a profound need for authenticity, a truth that cannot be described or recounted, but only lived. It's a choice that reveals philosophical sensitivity and attention to everything that escapes conceptualization. Baruch Spinoza may serve as a guide for those seeking unity, not a faith, but a deep intuition that everything is part of the same order. Admirers show a mind wanting to understand the world without splitting it, and a heart that's learned to find peace in necessity. Often, it's a calm, essential mind, unwilling to embrace chaos, finding strength in seeking meaning within an impersonal order. Loving Diogenes might signal a radical rebellion that seeks not reform, but rupture. In this choice lies a desire for absolute authenticity, rejecting all that's superfluous and feeding off challenge. Those drawn to him may understand that truth doesn't need elegant clothes. Moving to Sigmund Freud may attract those unsatisfied with shallow explanations. In Freud lies a compass to explore the unconscious, dreams, and contradictions. Admirers likely learn to coexist with what lies beneath consciousness, not to eliminate it, but to know it. Plato, in contrast, is a refuge for those who believe the visible world is only a shadow. In his Lovers, you sense a nostalgia for the absolute, a need to believe something pure, true, eternal exists somewhere. It's a choice speaking of aspiration and distance. Those identifying with him may intuit depth in everything, and often in silence seek an order greater enough to give meaning to the world. Soren Kierkegaard may resonate with those who felt the burden of choice, faith, and despair. His voice speaks to those who've never found definitive answers, but keep searching. In him lies the vertigo of freedom and the drama of solitude. Followers may live questions as open wounds and view life as something to be faced with inner courage. A deeply sincere soul. Socrates is for those who never settle for the first answer. This choice reveals a passion for doubt, for dialogue, for truth born of conversation. Admirers may have understood that knowing that one doesn't know is already a step forward. And they could be people who love questioning everything, not to destroy, but to move gradually closer to something resembling truth. Ludwig Wittgenstein attracts those who've experienced the limits of language. In Followers, you sense a subtle awareness. Words are traps, and what truly matters may not be said. But that doesn't make it any less real. Those identifying with his thought may be rigorous, perhaps restless minds, observing the world from unusual angles, having learned to trust silence more than overly confident speech. Feeling close to Arthur Schopenhauer might bring with it a profound, stark view of existence, a philosophy that refuses to be softened by collective illusions and seeks truth even when it hurts. Admirers may show an exaggerated sensitivity, a constant disappointment with what the world sells as joy or purpose. It's not surface-level pessimism. It's the need to face reality without filters. Loving Schopenhauer might mean realizing early that suffering isn't an exception, it's the rule. Finally, Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel may be chosen by those who feel everything is interconnected. In him resides a system that tries to understand every contradiction. Admirers might have vast minds and the courage to get lost in the labyrinths of thought. Often, that choice signals someone unafraid of complexity, who seeks it, inhabits it, and finds within it a deeper form of clarity. And in the end, whether it's one name or many, each philosophical choice tells a story, not of what we know, but of what we seek. And perhaps it is in that search, so personal and never the same for anyone, that the most authentic reflection of who we are can be found.